Hi everyone, welcome to episode 34, Carpool Karaoke with Sabastian Enges. So there I was battling Los Angeles traffic with my good friend Sabastian Enges riding shotgun. And you know, we're always having great conversation. I asked if I could hit the record button and record some of this. And he's like, sure, why not? So we thought we'd title this Carpool Karaoke. Here we go. I hope you guys enjoy.
Karaoke is singing. We could certainly break into song if you'd like.
I don't think anybody wants to see me.
No, or me for that matter. It could be entertaining for the masses, but not in a way that's good for us.
Yeah, but with Tesla,
So you would stay so you keep owning them.
yes.
So which is interesting, right?
Yes, because I'm a C-type personality
Right.
and I can handle it.
Okay.
So if you're not necessarily, even think about little things like this. I didn't charge my car last night.
Well, again,
Okay, well now you're screwed.
these are literally the things you told me. You're like, would you like, you know how your phone just will die suddenly because the battery's low and then you forgot to charge it? And I'm like, hey, would you want your car to do that? No. And then they were like, you know how your computer will just crash out of nowhere and has an update that has to be
Right.
done? And
Right.
Would you want your car to do that? I'm like,
Right.
absolutely no.
Exactly.
Which is why I still haven't gotten a Tesla.
Right.
But gas prices are insane
Yep.
and only getting worse. And thankfully, from a financial standpoint, that doesn't really impact me. But from a principle standpoint, it sure does.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And Teslas are beautiful. I'm like, I'm in yours. I'm like, wow, this is a really beautiful car.
Yep.
But like, I'm a mile and a half from my Mercedes dealership. If I have a problem, they literally will come pick up my car at my house,
Yeah.
drop a car off for me.
Yeah.
The service there is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
They wash my cars for free. The turnaround time is always quick, and I'm never without a car, and they're highly responsive. So
Yeah.
when you're saying things like not very responsive, takes a while to get stuff done, you really have to work at it.
Yep.
I'm like, well, that sounds like more than I want to have to deal with.
Yeah, the only problem with like that Mercedes thing you're describing is it's just not a Tesla. See? So again, once you've got the product, you're like, oh, I love this product. You
I
just
know,
get-
and as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I love my Mercedes, but I'm sitting here going, wow,
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah, I had a time where my car, you plug it in, and it just sort of, it kicked off after, let's say, 20 minutes. It just stopped charging. So I'm like, okay, so what's the issue? I go to my breaker box. Is anything tripping? No, nothing's tripping. It's the car. So I reset the car. So you hold these two paddles down. It does a reboot. So I rebooted the car. I'm like, oh, it's still happening. I'm like, it's got to be the cord. I knew it was the cord. So I'm going through the Tesla app to like, I just need a new cord. And of course I can't talk to a human being. So I'm like, oh, I gotta book an appointment that's a month out just to charge my car. You can't do that.
See, that stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That's my issue with big tech. Like, it's hard to get a hold of a real human
Yeah.
being now.
Yeah. That's real. Tesla is big tech.
But the car is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they make an awesome product.
Yeah.
They make an awesome product. It's unlike the Apple Store. They make an awesome product. You go to any Apple store, there's 60 people to help you out. It doesn't take you long to get service.
Yeah.
You're in and out with the problem solved.
Yeah, but I was going to say their customer service, my experience at least has been, they're phenomenal.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and I don't have a lot of instability. I've had an iPhone for, at least 8 years now? 10 years maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had a significant issue where I'm like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. No, I left a review for Tesla after my last one, hoping Elon would get it. And again, my theme was you make an unbelievable product. You just need to be able to figure out scale as far as service centers go to service this unbelievable product that you make. Now, Elon never got back to me on that. I kind of was hoping he would, but
surprising.
I'm sure I'm not the only one that said it that way. But yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Tesla.
I don't know. The things you bring up are valid reasons to me not to get it, but then you're right. It's like to your point. It's like, well,
Hey, you don't get that Mercedes.
no, you definitely don't.
It's like 0 to 60 in like
2 seconds.
Yeah,
2.5
maybe.
seconds.
Somewhere a little under 3.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fun. But those reasons are valid reasons not to get it. But it's like the product itself is just gorgeous. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I like my Mercedes. But to your point, it's not a Tesla.
Yep. Not a Tesla. I mean, there's so many good electric cars now. I mean, I was going to get the
Tesla charging station. Electric charging station.
Audi e-tron. Have you seen those?
Uh-huh.
I mean, those look sick. And I mean, all of them are coming out with legitimate 200 plus mile range batteries now. The new Mustang, have you seen the Ford Mustang?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so Tesla's not the only game in town anymore.
Yeah. None of them have Elon, though.
I mean, Elon's, he's kind of a cult figure.
I didn't mean to become an apologist for Elon online, but it somehow happened through some of my videos because I reference his decision making a lot, and he's either loved or hated.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who hate him, I feel like he's mostly just misunderstood as a whole. Like usually he gets tagged as, we got this thing where we have hate for billionaires right now, which concerns me on more levels than one, but I don't get the sense that he's very materialistic and or that he really cares about money from like a I want possessions standpoint.
He sold all of his houses.
Yeah.
He lives on other people's property now. I mean, I don't know if that's so true, living on other people's property, but I think he also has like one of those little Tesla mobile homes at his plant in Texas.
Well, I just watched a really good video that was just recent, within like the last week or so. We spent an hour and a half talking with friends on Zoom. I forget the name of the podcast, but 90 minutes of him just sharing where he sees the world, where he sees things, and he shared kind of casually in there that he's sleeping on friends' couches, and that he doesn't sleep very much. But that doesn't surprise me. Like you don't see him have like a super lavish lifestyle, right? Where Jeff Bezos, well, Jeff Bezos, you didn't see him have a super lavish lifestyle for a long time either, until just recently, where I think he started to kind of flex some of his success. And for me, it's like good for him. I know how long it took him to get there. But I don't get that Elon is very materialistic. Now, I don't know him personally, and I could be totally wrong about that, but I don't get that vibe. And then, I know this story is true. It's been verified many different ways that he dumped his entire PayPal exit into 3 companies, literally every dime, and was staying on friends' couches.
Yep.
While he was getting those companies going. So
exactly. Yeah, I think Elon a couple weeks ago tweeted something to Bezos that if you want to conquer space, get out of the hot tub and stop partying. If you want to go to the final frontier, you want to go to space, you better pony up the work ethic that you had in the early days of Amazon, because he doesn't have that same relentlessness. Something tells Elon.
I didn't see that, but that sounds like something he would tell him. Did you see the conversation he was having with Bill Gates? Bill Gates was asking for his help on a project, I think, probably his foundation in Africa. And he was thinking about doing it, and then he just straight out asked him, he goes, do you still have a bet against Tesla? And he's like, I kind of played, he's like, I kind of, and he kind of played around with his answer, but ultimately it came down to, he has a $3 billion bet against Tesla.
Yeah.
And he's just like, in good conscience, I can't do business with you.
Huh. Yeah, I did hear something about it. I didn't dive into it.
It was like an exchange, and I think he posted it was a text message exchange. He posted the conversation on social media.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit.
And that's what you got to love about Elon, is there's a level of transparency.
It's just like, here we go.
Like the letter to the, I don't know if you read the letter to the employees, like,
get back
remote days are done. And why? Like, we deliver this unbelievable product. You're not going to do that over the phone. Like, get to the office. The level of transparency. Love or hate the guy.
Stop pretending. Like he was a shout out to, or call out to employees that evidently have a negative opinion of him and or the business. So like, you have to stop pretending that you work somewhere else. It was great. I'm a fan.
I just don't know about him publicly saying, in the next election I'm voting Republican. I just don't know if that really...
Yeah. Well, that's like shots fired.
That's like Jordan. People were always asking him, like, why don't you get into politics, whatever. He's like, listen, Republicans buy my shoes too. Like, he just always stayed out of politics to focus on his product, and whether you were blue or red. You wanted a pair of Jordans.
But I don't think he's thinking Tesla at all. I think he's thinking on a much bigger scale. And I appreciate that he's very direct about, like, I was, again, that 90-minute conversation is where I think the origin of that statement came from, because he shared it there. He's like, hey, I've generally voted Democrat most of my adult life, and he goes, they were generally considered the party of kindness, is what he said. But he's like, they have gone so far off the rails. He's like, I think I'm going to vote Republican next time around. I don't blame him. I get it. I get where that's coming from.
I think a lot of people would say, well, doesn't that depend whether or not it's going to be Trump on the ticket?
Oh my God!
Because
I don't think Trump's coming back for the better of the party. I think his days are going to be done. I don't think he's running again. But it was interesting. It would be interesting whether he ends up buying Twitter or not, and he outlined his concerns and why he may not as a result of some of the things he's finding out. But he got into a kind of a little bit of an argument or debate with AOC on Twitter, and so he threw up a poll, and the poll was, who do you trust less, or maybe it was who do you trust? I think it was who do you trust more, billionaires or politicians, right? And he just threw it up, and he's got millions of followers, right?
As does she.
Yeah, as does she. So, and he tagged her in it, and like millions of votes later, last I checked, it was at like 2 million votes, but I think before it expired, it was like 78% of people trusted billionaires over politicians. And it was like, and mute.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Argument solved.
Well, it's kind of like our previous conversation. I mean, whoever got you into that political position, you've kind of got to take care of those people that, you got to sign the bill on their behalf. I mean, I think that's the level of mistrust people have, is there's so much money in politics that how do you trust the politician? It's the people that endorse that politician that ultimately are in power.
Yeah, and that's the sentiment that a lot of just, I would say, your average American has right now. And social media, I've inadvertently been talking about politics and government this last couple of weeks just because of the content that's coming up at my leaders meetings. And the general sentiment from those who share their comments is that they believe the politicians are bought and paid for, and that you don't have a real vote anymore, and that it's all agendas.
Yeah. Like NASCAR, they should have company logos on their
I love that.
on their suits,
yeah.
So we know exactly who sponsors them.
Yeah, I agree.
Pharmaceutical, oil.
Trust needs to be reestablished, and for trust to be reestablished, there's some big issues that we need to address. And I think our society has gone so far into the earned category, where everything has become about money, that we have forgotten about people. And it's like, I'm staunchly a capitalist simply because I haven't seen a system work better. I'm like, hey, I'm open to a different system, right? If there's a superior system, I'm open to it. Just I haven't seen it yet. And I sure as shit don't think it's socialism or certainly not communism in its state. Although, if you read the Communist Manifesto, in light of current events, I've reread the Communist Manifesto to get kind of up to date with a lot of the philosophy. Besides the fact that he seems like he was a very angry dude and had some pretty dark sentiment towards what he would regard as the bourgeoisie, in a perfect world where human beings were fully enlightened, self-motivated, and self-disciplined, so totally contrary to where humans show up, communism would work. In fact, I would offer heaven, whatever your thoughts are of heaven. Heaven is a form of communism. I think Christians would say, well, it's really a theocracy, sure, but it's a world in which you don't have need, your needs are taken care of, and everybody is equally contributing to the society as a whole. And that works in a society that's fully awake and fully enlightened. That's just not where we live. And we know it just doesn't work. So, but anyway, from a capitalist system, I get why people are upset with capitalism right now. I'm not confused. And for me, the responsibility is on successful people to recalibrate what success looks like. So I've really appreciated Gary Vee, who's been talking about this a lot, and he's going hard on it's not about money. Like, money doesn't buy you happiness. It's just not all about chasing the dime. And that isn't to say that money isn't important. It is important. There's no way it's not. But I think we've gone so far to earn. Everything is an earn mentality and all about pay, that there's other values that have been overshadowed, and so now we're seeing a bit of a pushback where people are like, dude, it's not all about work. It's not all about, building somebody else's business for them. Like, relationships matter, community matters, which I think you and I would be in agreement that, yes, that's true, but it's not a sucker's choice, which seems to be what the counter argument is right now. So,
well, we saw under Bush, like when you start taking away checks and balances like that the government had to allow capitalism to just do its thing without any government interference. You saw, or we all saw, what happened with the economy collapsing in 2008.
Because you're also catering to another part of a human tendency, right? For greed, or more. Yeah. We don't seem to have a very natural self-regulation system. So you're right, unhindered or unchecked. I don't even know if that was capitalism. I think in some ways that may be unfair. But you're exactly right. That's why I'm not as worried about the real estate market this time through as I was, as 07, 08, because there is significant more regulation. Businesses have to be in much better shape, or banks have to be in much better shape, and the consumer had to be in much better shape. They had to be able to make those payments. So I don't forecast we're going to see a collapse, at least from that standpoint. But you're right. But the greed factor, right, where everything becomes about profit, like, I get it. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and we're about to go into another recession, I think, and you had CEOs laying off 2,000 people and taking a $200 million bonus. Something about that just doesn't sit right to me. And I get the game, but it's like, at some point, it can't just all be about money. Like, money cannot be the only thing we care about in our society. And I feel like we've gone too far that direction. And so bringing balance back where it's people and profit, not just profit. And I think the companies of the future who get that are going to be the ones that win, and win long term.
Covey talked a lot about that in the 8th Habit, that the 8th Habit is taking effectiveness, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, to greatness. He was talking about how the companies that fulfill the 4 human needs in their people, right, to live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy, right, physical, emotional, social, spiritual. I mean, the companies that provide value in those 4 areas are going to be the name brands everybody's going to want to work with.
100%.
He's like, the companies that focus on just taking care of the physical, in other words, all we provide you is just money, and then the money, you use the money to take care of your belly and the shelter for your home, all that stuff. I mean, that's one-dimensional. It's not enough.
Yes.
So that's one thing I'd say about, obviously the business we're in is we were even having discussion, should we get involved nationally with a charity again? Everybody can contribute. And I'm like, well, yeah, that satisfies, the spiritual need we all have to take care of those less fortunate than us. I think that's a great thing to get involved with and provide our people spiritual growth.
I love that. Live, love, learn, legacy. I forgot about that. It's funny. As much as I've read the 7 Habits, I haven't read the
8th Habit.
Yeah.
It's even thicker than the 7 Habits.
Is it really?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Comes with a DVD as well, too, with little Covey videos. If anybody even has a DVD player anymore, I don't know. I don't.
No, I don't either. That's cool. I agree. And that's creating community, right? Where people feel like they belong, that they're contributing, and that life isn't all about work. So, like, as much as I don't like the sentiment, where you get into the lazy and undisciplined and the blame game and the victim mentality around the economy, and obviously most people who are quote-unquote self-made, to whatever degree that's true, I think would agree. I don't have a hard time understanding why people are frustrated with the current situation in our economy and are demonizing capitalism and kind of looking for new answers. So,
so you didn't have to experience this. I did. So as a immigrant to the United States, I can't remember how the question was phrased. It's a multiple choice, not test, or maybe it is a test, but if you get some of these preliminary questions wrong, interview's over, get in the back of the line again, you're not welcome in the US. And so our system here in America, multiple choice, communism, socialism, capitalism, if you didn't check the capitalism box,
you're out.
Yep.
You go.
Hit the line, Skippy.
Yeah.
We don't want you in America. I'm like, a lot of people might have forgot this country's built on capitalism.
Well, so there's some really interesting things that are happening too. If you get into futurism, you start kind of predicting trends to see where the future is going. The U.S. would be in negative population growth if it wasn't for immigration.
Yeah.
And we're still the number one country that people want to immigrate to.
Oh.
So that's a fun question. Well, why is that? If it's so shitty here and it's so, as some people would like to make you believe, it's like, well, if that's the case, why is this still the number one spot that people want to come to?
Totally.
That's interesting. Also, many of them are coming from socialist or some version of socialist or in some cases communist kind of structures, economic structures. Well, it's not uncommon for people, because what they're familiar with, to come into and want to vote in or support what they already knew, even if they know it isn't better, which is interesting because it's what they know. It's like I have an aunt that was in the Air Force for a very long time, and she was part of the intelligence that was dealing with the Iraq War, the second one. Which is the hardest thing we have to deal with in Iraq is we're trying to teach democracy to a group of people that don't give a shit about democracy. They don't even have a framework for it. Like, they're used to, dictators and being told what to do and fear-based leadership. So it's like when you suddenly present a new model, they don't even know how to function in it because it's not how their culture was developed. Well, there's a lot of people that come from other countries like that still respond to that because that's what they know, even if that isn't what they want. And then you have, Florida, which is interesting. That is kind of it leans right, but it is a melting pot of sorts and just has some liberal tendencies, but they're staunchly capitalist because a big predominant chunk of the population came from communist Cuba or socialist Cuba, and depending on how you look at that, and countries like that. They're like, oh hell no, there was a reason why we left Venezuela or left Cuba or countries like that. So it's interesting to me, but again, I don't have a problem understanding where the frustration is. For how wealthy we are as a country, I don't think we do a good enough job of taking care of our people. And that's the loosely you would say the Democratic Party, and again, I would say loosely, his general focus has been as the well-being of society. So what is government's role or the people's role in the betterment of society, right? So social responsibility. And the tension is held on that side. Predominantly, the Republican or conservative, which is generally more fiscally conservative, and then their orientation is to personal responsibility. What is your to self-autonomy and to the responsibility or onus being on the individual. And so in a perfect world, those two systems come together and they create a healthy tension so that you don't swing too far one way, because I think most people would say the obvious answer is it's both, right? There's a social responsibility and there is a personal responsibility, but it's gotten increasingly more toxic, and I think part of the reason is there's just a lack of clear communication and working together, and some of the values that made our country great for so long seem to have been left. But sadly, what seems to be the default mechanism is what is most profitable, and that is just gross to me on so many levels. So I think we need to come back to a more healthy balance and get some dialogue and recognize, hey, for how wealthy we are, we should have a better education system. We should have a better healthcare system. We should be able to help the poor out more in an effective way, whereas our general way of dealing with things here seems to be we treat symptoms, not problems. just make the symptom go away and everything's going to be okay, which makes these problems come back even worse because we don't deal with the underlying issue.
I think it was Socrates. You know your history probably better than me, but I think he said, well, if the government is in power for so long versus individuals have power for so long, both of those, right? Let's just take the individual. If an individual has the ability to have absolute power, it eventually will lead to dictatorship. If the government has absolute power, it will eventually lead to dictatorship.
Yes.
So the pendulum's got to kind of swing both ways, and that's really America. I mean, as it kind of keeps kind of swinging back and forth, the goal is to kind of keep it in between where the individual can't get too powerful, the government can't get too powerful, and
we the people.
Yeah.
There's a tension.
You know what I'm talking about? Was that
Oh,
Socrates who said that?
I don't recall. I don't recall that exactly, but that is philosophically correct. Right? That's the tension. But and that you're exactly right. It's our system was set up with that idea in mind, where we hold a tension between the two, but they got to learn how to work together again. And I'm not exactly sure why that started degrading, but like I was listening to a congressman talk about in the 80s even, that you'd go fight viciously on the floor of Congress for your bill or for a law or for a policy against the other side, but then after you were done, you'd go grab a beer and have a sandwich and hang out with them, and it was like there was still a relationship there.
Yeah. It's like WWE superstars.
Yeah.
Hating each other with the microphone, beating each other up, and then
good friends.
Go get a beer after.
Yeah, and then somewhere in it started in the Clinton era, or in the late 90s anyway, that started to really degrade. And it has just gotten worse and worse and worse. Like, we need good people in politics. And the people that we probably need in politics are the ones that don't have any interest in being there. That's the other thing. It's like career politicians are concerning to me on more levels than
people that got rich as politicians.
Right. We're like, well, that's why, like, that was the interesting thing. It's, Elon's poll, who do you trust less, or who do you trust more, billionaires or politicians? Like, I trust billionaires more than I trust politicians. Like, wow, that says a lot about politicians, right? And our view of the government right now. And to me, that's on everybody. But if I was a politician, I would be taking note of that on many levels, and I'd stop the blame game, which is like, I just turn off anyone that just wants to blame someone else for why this is happening.
Right.
Like, well, it takes all of us.
Politics. All right. Well, let's shift gears here, Sabs. What else? What else is juicy? Any juicy topics you want to talk about? Anything juicy? Drunk driver?
Yeah, it looks like he's getting tested for it. It's
11
early
o'clock
in the day yet.
It's Friday.
Yeah.
Did you notice, not to just lighten it up a little bit, when we were in LA County, it was dark and gloomy, and as soon as we crossed the line, it's all sunshine and flowers.
Yeah, it's and I literally can feel when we cross that county line.
Yeah.
LA is not my.
It's funny, when I go into LA, I like to roll down the windows, and I like the smell. I just love LA.
Do you really?
I do.
You like the smell?
I spent 20 years up there.
So it's nostalgic for you in some ways.
Yeah, love LA. Saw the Lakers win 5 championships up there. Saw the Kings win 2 championships. So 7 of those 20 years was championship city.
Didn't we see the Kings win a championship together? I feel like we did.
Exactly.
I get that. It makes
Great
sense.
Restaurants up there, culture, 88 recognized languages spoken in LA. Orange County's probably got 3. I'll be 3 and I'll see.
Yeah, you might be right. I love Orange County.
Yeah.
It
doesn't suck.
No.
Especially South Orange County.
Yeah. I guess when I say Orange County, what I really mean is South Orange County.
Yeah, because 714 isn't much different than LA.
No, it's kind of it's like LA kind of bled in, energetically bled into.
Although your office is in Orange, do you spend much time downtown Orange?
The Orange Circle, I love, yeah.
I mean, how awesome is it down
there? Yeah, it's fun, because it's got kind of an old town feel. I like that.
I think half the historic buildings in California are in the city of Orange.
What, really?
Yeah. If you look on the sides of the buildings, they've got a plaque on it. Like, these are protected historic buildings.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I didn't know
half of
that. Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. Could be wrong on that. I think Google told me that, so you know it's got to be true.
Well, Google said it.
Right? Exactly.
It is great, though, how much Google can tell you. We live in a different time. Remember, like, when we were kids, if there was information you wanted, there was this thing you had to get called an encyclopedia. Right? And people would actually buy.
I had them.
I know.
Well, my mom spent a lot of money on those things.
People would come and sell them door to door,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a whole thing.
Yep.
Now it's like I have it set up in my office, and anytime I want to know a stat or where to start looking, generally it doesn't give you in-depth knowledge unless you dig around. But if you need high-level stuff, it's like, man, this is amazing. Or you just, want a definition of a word. Like, I love reading, and I have a rule that anytime I read a word that I'm not quite familiar with or the way it's being used, even if I contextually understand what it means, I like to look it up and understand more.
Yeah, I think Encyclopedia Britannica just stopped, within the last couple of years, stopped printing.
They gave up.
Which means there actually was a market for that 15 years into Google. Like, who actually would buy these books when it's like, you could just make it's easier and it's a lot cheaper to Google it.
100%. Now, I have a theory.
Somebody would still buy it.
It's just a theory, but I have my old encyclopedia. In fact, in my office, I have most of the Western classics. Look at the Cobra flying up the 5.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they come up from Camp Pendleton. Oh, that's actually, that's Cobra.
Boy, it just feels so powerful, huh?
Yep.
See the missile launchers on the side.
Tow missiles and Hellfire.
Wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Nope. My uncle flew that. It's not as tanky as the Apache, but they look very similar. But I have all my old books, and part of the reason, in fact, I have the annals that I've saved from 1932 to 1987, I think is the last one. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, a recorded history of the most significant events of that year. And yes, all of that is online. But here's what's interesting to me is information that's printed can't be changed. Right? Information that is digital can be changed, it can be edited, it can be deleted. And we seem hell-bent on rewriting stories that we're not very into anymore. And so I like having books, especially history books, for that reason.
I think Elon was referencing that his Wikipedia page is incorrect. It's either him or Jordan Peterson was talking
There's
about it.
There's a number of the guys. I know lots of people that are like it says incorrect, and he comes in to correct it. They go like, listen, this is about me. Like, this isn't true, and it still gets corrected back to whoever's in charge of that wants. And I forget it was some of it was silly, some of it wasn't, like where he went to school or whether he was married or not. But it was stuff that it's like, why
left here or U-turn up there?
U-turn up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you live in a beautiful part of the world here in Nelligale.
Yeah, I love it here.
I mean, Nelligale's just lots of horse ranches everywhere.
Yeah, the equestrian vibe.
Lots of cool Christmas lights in the winter.
Coyotes.
Lots of coyotes.
That seem very well fed.
Yeah, a friend of mine in Minnesota, lots of eagles. Really cool to see these big, majestic eagles, flying all over. And so one of my friends took a drone to go see what was inside an eagle's nest, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to see little eaglets and stuff. And
did the eagle attack it?
No, saw a bunch of dog collars. Oh, yep. Anybody looking for Fluffy? Fluffy was on the receiving end of
the animal kingdom.
Yep.
Oh, wow. That's sad if it is your animal, but also a reminder that the animal kingdom is still doing its thing.
Yep.
That makes sense, though. I'm looking at buying some more property in Washington, and one of the places I was looking at has this really beautiful hen house that's abnormally beautiful and big. And I was like, well, what? You have all this acreage. Why wouldn't you just let them out? And they were like, eagles pick off the chickens constantly. It's like, wow.
Yeah, chickens aren't given much of a fighting chance on their own, are they?
No, chickens, rabbits. There's a whole bunch of animals that you're just like, man, that's why you look stressed out. If you look at a chicken in the eyes, if you look at a rabbit in the eyes, or a squirrel, they all look like really high strung and stressed out. Like, well, that's why you're stressed out, because everything wants to freaking eat you.
That's funny. I've never stopped to look them in the eye. I'll have to do that.
I tried to honor all beings with a good eye gaze where I can. But yeah, it's like, that's tough.
You ever think of owning a horse living up here?
Yeah, we've looked into it a few times. I think we're going to own horses in our place in Washington, though, not here. But we were looking at buying a place over the pandemic that just gave us more space, and it had horse stalls in it. And like, you can lease them out to people, and it goes well. Like, people will pay to stow their horses.
Nice Mercedes behind us. I bet he's very pleased when he gets his Mercedes serviced.
Yeah. Maybe so.
Well, it's fun, Sabs.
Yeah.
Carpool karaoke.